melhor. So, hi everyone, my name is Amália Garcez. I'm an undergraduate student at URGS, that's Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Sul. I'm advised by Professor Carolina Brito, who is one of the organizers of this event. And my research is in data analysis of extreme weather events in Brazil. So, I guess everybody here has heard about climate change. It's not a surprise, and it's not a surprise when I tell you that human-induced climate change is causing an increase in the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events all around the world. And here in Brazil, we don't need to be told that. We are having droughts and floods happening at the same time. We're having heat waves. And so what we wanted to do is look at Brazilian data and see how these changes are happening in our country. So taking data from the past 60 years from the National Institute of Meteorology, and looking at all of these weather stations, which are distributed throughout the country, though not homogeneously, and seeing how that has changed and how that differs from region to region. So, unsurprisingly, we have found an increase in heat waves pretty significantly, a decrease in cold waves. Precipitation has changed differently in different regions. And this is the work that we have done so far. There's a few more indices we have looked at, but basically that's it. We've looked at 60 years of data and seen how these extreme events have changed in Brazil. And we have a preprint right now on that, and my poster is about that, so if you want to hear and talk to me about it, please come look at it. But what we're doing now is actually a little bit different. So we have started looking and comparing how machine learning algorithms identify anomalies and extremes in comparison to the very traditional statistical data and analysis we have done so far. So we're now taking not only meteorological data, but real analysis and model data, and we're comparing these very traditional indices with these very, very new algorithms. And this is what we're doing right now, so if anybody is also interested in talking about that, it's not on my poster, but I'm doing that. And next week, Luisa, who's over there, she will be presenting another poster and another flash talk about another research I'm also involved in that's on active matter, so it might have a little bit more to do with this school, but in any case, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Amália. We have time for one question, maybe. Or you can leave a discussion to poster session. And now we can have the second presenter. Thank you, Amália. Who is Daniel? Yes, thank you. Can you take that one, please? Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me?
You can
Great.
Use these.
I'm
I
gonna
don't know if this is working.
Yeah, how do I hit the button to like go the next one?
It's not working.
Hello.
My fault.
Hi all, I'm Daniel. I'm a second-year PhD student at Princeton, where I'm co-advised by David Schwab and Bill Bialik. And right now I'm interested in compression in machine learning models. So these models are very large and require a lot of memory to store and run. And one way that we can sort of make them smaller in terms of making it easier to store the information that specifies the model is by discretizing the weight distributions, the parameter distributions. And this has been done before. It's called quantization. But a lot of that work, in some sense, requires you to do some sort of ad hoc binning of weights. And we were interested in if we can add a soft constraint to our objective function so that the model learns an inherently discretized weight distribution during training. And so we kind of borrowed an idea from physics, and so we said, what if we make pairwise attractive interactions between these weights in weight space, and then give that a hard cutoff, and see if we can get the weight distributions of neural networks to discretize sort of emergently while also learning a task. And so right now we're doing this in vision models and on vision tasks. And I just want to share with you a couple figures. So if you look at this, these two figures, these are two layers of a residual network being trained on the CIFAR10 data set. And we're now seeing that this works also in ImageNet, but I don't have those figures here. And essentially, the blue distributions are without our method, without our pairwise attractive interactions, and they're continuous distributions. And you see that all you have to do is add these pairwise attractive potentials between weights, and you get some very sharp clustering. So we're hopeful that this might be a really interesting way to do model compression in a sort of more principled way than current methods. And I'd like to acknowledge my advisors and some collaborators of mine. And yeah, if you want to hear more, please feel free to talk to me offline and check out my poster.
Thanks, Daniel. So we have time for one question over there. Sorry.
Hello, very nice. I was just wondering if doing this could add spurious minima to the loss where you would get stuck when you try to learn, to minimize gradient descent.
So yeah, the hope is to sort of find a trade-off, right? So when you're doing something like image recognition, you might find a minima that doesn't perfectly optimize the training loss, but if you're actually really interested in generalization, it's not clear. You might still do very well, even maybe better or just as good on sort of generalization performance. So yeah, I agree that you might get rid of a proper minimum, but if you're interested in models that are sort of working on out-of-distribution data anyway, being trained for that, I think that might not be a problem.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have our next presenter now, who is Venceslas Meli. He's going to be talking about mobile oscillators in a mobile multi-cluster network. So this is your mic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry for the English language. My name is Venceslas Nguefoue. I'm from Cameroon. I'm going to present our work entitled Mobile Oscillators in a Mobile Multi-Cluster Network. Another authors are Thierry Jougro from Italy, Steve Corney, Patrick Lodop, Hilaire Fortin from Cameroon, and Hilda Sedea from Brazil. So the network is the set of elements capable to interact. And the network of mobile systems is the network in which the element is in motion. So some natural mobile systems exhibit several behaviors. For example, we can see in figure 1b, the fascinating aerial spectacle of starlings, and in figure 1c, the whirlpools produced by fish. So understand the mechanisms which lead to the particular behavior can help to improve the coordination of the mobile artificial system, such as robots and drones. So to model the mobile system, we use two dynamics: the internal dynamics described by an oscillators and the external dynamics called agent, which give the different position in space. So to model the network of the mobile system, we create interaction between the oscillators depending on their position in space. So in this work, we investigate the influence of the mobility of layer on the global dynamics of network. And we consider a network formed by two clusters in motion in two-dimensional space. In each cluster, we have several mobile systems in motion randomly. And our result provides several behaviors from the disorder state in both clusters to the complete synchronization in both clusters, present here by the blue and the magenta color. We also made analysis of the stability of these behaviors using analytical and numerical methods. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much. So we have time for one question. I have one. Can I say that this is similar to an active matter sort of system, but the interactions between the particles have to be interactions given by the network?
Please, I don't understand well the...
Is it like active matter?
Yes, yes.
But the interactions are only between the particles that are interacting according to the network?
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. The network, the mobile system have two dynamics, internal, and we create integration in the internal dynamics.
I see. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So now our next speaker is Dafne Prado Bandeira, who is going to be talking about dynamics of gradient descent in a high-dimensional non-convex canyon landscapes.
You already said half of my speech.
Sorry. Please go on. Thank you.
Do you hear me well? Yes. Well, yes. So I am Dafne, and in this project I worked with Professor Pier Francesco Urbani to try to understand how gradient descent will explore these high-dimensional landscapes that arise because of constraints. So this is a very general problem. Daniel just explained that, well, briefly, that this also appears in artificial neural networks because they are being trained under constraints of data. So we would like to have zero error in the data that we are training with. But this also happens in biological problems. For instance, confluent tissues will be under constraints that are geometrical in order to tessellate the whole space. So this problem is very general and very complex. We have seemingly infinite dimensions, nonlinear constraints, and in general we model these with some randomness, and that's what our toy model tried to pick up at. So we have nonlinear constraints that come from square constraints. It's the easiest nonlinearity that we can have. But we are able to have some sort of rich phase diagram that has some of these interesting characteristics that we would like for this kind of problems, namely what we call a canyon landscape, in which this satisfiability will be our zero energy manifold. That's what we are looking for in a constraint satisfaction problem. In specific, my main contribution for this work was to understand not the thermodynamical properties, but the dynamical properties of gradient descent. So we have zero temperature, and we just want to understand how, let's put it a bit pictorially. In this image, we have a particle, and we want to understand how it descends into this canyon. And we would like to understand with that whether or not this canyon, well, is actually a canyon. We have some evidence in machine learning that this happens. So we want to understand what is the connectivity of this space, for instance. And this is possible by initializing many replicas that start in a constrained space. And we try to understand how do they collectively and dynamically arrive to this zero energy manifold. And if you want to know more, of course, you can talk to me in the poster session, and that's all.
Thank you. So, questions? Okay, so let's move to the next speaker, who is Gustavo Mangold. Where is he? Over there. Também tá com problema aí?
Cara, eu rompi o meu ligamento.
Quer falar dali?
Sorry about it. I tore my ACL, so I'm limping a little bit.
Okay, effect of dilution and mobility in the spatial prisoner's dilemma with reinforcement learning.
Yeah. Okay. This is the work I've been doing with my advisor, is Heitor Fernandes and Mendele Weinstein. It's about putting reinforcement learning into the prisoner's dilemma. So we have this spatial setting that sets the prisoner's dilemma. We play a game with our neighbors, and we get a payoff. We have those rules there that dictate how good we're doing in the game. Defection is almost always best. But the idea is to give this very simple Q-learning algorithm that has this Q table, and give each player a Q table that they can learn how to play best. So in our paper that's about to be published very soon, we put mobility into this scenario. So we give the players the ability to move and see what happens. Oh. No problem. And these are some of the results. So we can set several types of actions, so action spaces. And if we set an action spaces where players have no knowledge of their surroundings, mobility plays almost no role in cooperation. You see cooperation going from red to blue, so blue is highest cooperation. The left one is players that have no knowledge of their surroundings. They just can choose to change their strategies or not. And we see that PD in the y-axis here, that's the mobility, doesn't even change that much the cooperation. This changes drastically in the two graphs from the right, where the players have knowledge of their surroundings, so they can choose to copy the strategy of the best player around them, so they have some knowledge. And they can choose that or to move in the middle graph, and we see that there's a specific region of cooperation. And, yeah, is this? And in the right, we have a type of player that can choose, that can move, and another that can persist. So this is a novel action. In this here, we see a circular region that has most cooperation. It's for really slow agents, and they cluster up like that when the mobility is really low. And if we put these agents that can persist, they have this symbiotic behavior. So here, where cooperation died earlier, cooperation thrives because there's symbiotic relationship between those agents that persist and those agents that choose the best, those agents that have knowledge. So in this region here, cooperation would die, and now it thrives. So here's a correlation between the state space and the action space, and we see that the clusters are formed between the players that choose to copy the strategies and the ones that persist. So this is a symbiotic behavior. If you want to know more, you can come to my poster. I'll explain better. There's some more figures and stuff like that. So yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Gustavo. So questions? Okay, so let's move to our next speaker, who is Tommaso Papetti. He's going to be talking about phase behavior of EGDMA microgels. The pointer here.
Thank you. Which is the, here.
Yes.
Okay, so hello everybody, I'm Tommaso. I work at Sapienza University with Manuela Zaccarelli, and I'm in my first year of PhD, and I'm working on microgels. Specifically, we're trying to establish a new class of soft colloidal microgels, which are EGDMA microgels. So microgels are soft colloidal particle which are composed of two kinds of particles. One is a cross-linking agent, and then the other one is like monomeric chains. So this new type of microgel has the ability to really fast form a core structure, okay, which is very isolated from and almost not thermoresponsive in respect to the polymeric chains. So they are able to exhibit a volume phase transition, which basically they can shrink and be swollen back reversibly at changes of like you can choose the temperature or the pH of the water or whatever else. So we're trying to investigate the internal structure of these colloidal particles, which has never really been done before in such a monomeric resolved way, also in simulations. So we are building ad hoc single star models, monomer resolved, and also we have assembled a new kind of in silico microgels using a different kind of potential for the cross-linking agents, in which we're trying to reproducing this kind of fast reactivity, which condense them in the core. And so this is, I have just started this project, and so future possibilities will be to explore the glassy dynamics, so at varying packing fractions, how the dynamics of the system, I mean by that I mean the radial distribution function and the mean square displacement, how will it behave, and yes, so basically that's it. Right now we are studying we are probing the free energy landscape of rare fluctuation or rare states of this kind of particles under umbrella sampling. And so, yes, that's basically it. If you have some questions about it, you will find me in the poster session. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommaso. Questions? If not, let's move to the next, who is Alejandro Castro. Please, this is your pointer and your mic.
Where do I turn on? This here.
Yes.
Hello, do you hear me? My name is Alejandro. I'm from Cuba. I'm a master's student. And today I'll be presenting to you some of the results of this master work. I'll be working with two colleagues from Vienna, Austria, and David, who is my supervisor, works at Sapienza University in Italy. So we're working in opinion dynamics, but for any physics or statistical physics enthusiasts will be gladly understand that this is pretty much, you can use all the algorithm from statistical physics into this kind of problems. We're working with a specific model. It's a simple model in which you have some spatial structure of any time. I specifically work with tree-like graphs. And each node contains a multidimensional variable with binary values, right? It could be 1 or -1. And you define interactions between nodes by the scalar product, basically, of these variables. So a positive interaction will be mostly ones and mostly ones. This will give a positive interaction, which we call homophily. And a negative interaction, we have mostly one and mostly negative ones, and we have a xenophobic interaction, okay? So this evolves in time according to this Hamiltonian. If you want, you can see it as a stress function, and you want to minimize this function. So people who are affiliated tend to align their opinions on some matters and reject the ones that are not agree with. So just quickly overview of some results. You can attack this for a lot of different ways. We use Monte Carlo, of course, belief propagation, and we also made an analytic prediction of the random. I mean, we define the phase transition here from disorder to order, so the paramagnetic to ferromagnetic. So this is the dashed line, this prediction. Well, Monte Carlo and BP, and we have in the same phase diagram, of course, for different range of temperatures, we have coexisting first order and second order phase transitions. And another very intuitive result, but it's kind of nice to see it after do all this work, is to see that if we check the area in which consensus is hard, we see it against G. G is the dimension of the variable I talked about at the beginning. And you can imagine as the amount of different subjects we can discuss about. As G grows, this area where consensus is hard grows quickly too, which is very good. And I finished.
Thank you.
No, I actually finished. So if you have any questions, yes. Okay.
Thank you very much, Alejandro. Any question? So let's move to the next. Now we have Giuliana Nadini talking about strange non-chaotic attractor in a laser with heteroball absorber. Yes, please.
Here. Hello, I am Juliana. I work at solid laser laboratory at CTDF, a research center in Buenos Aires. So today I like to share our recent experimental work on strange non-chaotic attractors, or SNAs, observing a neodymium Bandeira laser. So what is a strange non-chaotic attractor? They were first described in the 80s, and is a class of attractors that combine two seemingly contradictory features. On one hand, they are strange. That means have a geometric complexity and a fractal dimension. On the other hand, they are non-chaotic. So all their Lyapunov exponents are negative. That is, they are aperiodic, but doesn't have a sensitive to initial conditions. So SNAs have been observed in a variety of analog experiments or toy models, but lasers, unlike those simplified setups, are complex real-world systems, and in particular, the passively Q-switch neodymium laser, or laser, is widely used in industry and research, and shows a rich range of dynamics going from periodic behavior to chaotic. So we present the first experimental evidence of strange non-chaotic attractors in lasers. Here, here, no, yes. This is our setup, a standard big cavity laser with a chromojack laser. Okay, thank you. Here is the chromojack crystal. So by changing its position, we obtain time series of interpulse intervals, and then reconstruct the attractor of the system. Here is one of our strange non-chaotic attractors that we found. All his Lyapunov exponents are negative. Its spectrum is bar, and the fractal dimension is about 2.7. So if you are curious about how we did the attractor reconstruction or the analysis, come find me at the poster. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions?
Okay.
I have one quick question. So in the same setup, can you have both chaotic and non-chaotic?
Yes.
By changing some
and
parameter?
it's a laser that is used in medicine. It's a common laser. That is amazing because you can describe nature. Yes.
Thank you. So our next speaker now is Jaderson Poli. He's going to be talking about neural models exhibit diverse dynamic under superphysiological electrical stimulation.
Okay, thank you. I'm Jaderson from Federal University of Paraná. And today I'm going to talk to you about this work I've been doing during my PhD. I'm in third year. So first of all, electrical stimulation of the brain is used as a disease therapy, such as Parkinson or Alzheimer. And it is usually done at conventional frequencies, such as usually 130 hertz. And this is what we call physiological frequencies, because it's the frequency which spikes usually occur at the maximum. But recently, some clinical trials have showed that stimulating at 10 kilohertz can be also effective, and also can be have less damage or side effects. But the mechanisms for this are unknown, mainly because we don't have much more trials, and the integration between experiments and in silico analysis is poor. So the literature needs to be increased, and we need to understand better this range of 10 kilohertz. Currently, there are 2 recent papers that analyze the response of neurons in rats and on the retina. That's when these neurons are stimulated at kilohertz frequencies. But it's still unclear how this occurs at a variety of neural types. So the poster I'm presenting here has the objective to show some map of the dynamics in the neural amplitude frequency parameter space. We use conductance-based neural models, and we use the Hodgkin-Huxley as a trial, first trial to validate our technique to map the dynamics. So we will want to map the dynamics, and we use the Hodgkin-Huxley as a form to validate, and then we go to more complicated mammalian neural models, also using conductance-based models for the cortex, hippocampus, basal ganglia, and retina, trying to see some correlations with experimental data. So that's it. And I invite you all to see the poster, and there are some more figures. I couldn't put it here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jadison. Question over there.
Maybe you said it, but what kind of disease? Is it epilepsy or something?
Well, for this specific work, we don't attack a specific disease, but mostly we are concerned about Parkinson. So specifically, this clinical trial is for Parkinson.
Okay, thank you. So now we have Cristina Gabassoni talking about testing theories of the glass transition with the same liquid, but many kinetic rules.
Okay. Okay, my name is Cristina. I'm a postdoc at Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul. I work with Carolina Brito, and my poster is about work we published with Mathieu about the glass transition. So in general, when you have a liquid and you cool it down, this liquid will crystallize. But if you reduce the temperature very quickly, some liquids go to a different transition, that is the glass transition. For these systems, when we cool down the temperature, what we see is that the dynamics slow down. We have higher relaxation times, and you have a very heterogeneous dynamics. So the question is, what's the origin of this transition? And there's a lot of several theories about it. And in general, we can classify it in three groups. The first group says that we can describe it just using thermodynamics. The second one says that we need to describe it using dynamics, and thermodynamics doesn't play a significant role. And you have a third point of view that's explained through avalanches. So there's a lot of debate on which one is correct, and we decided that was a good idea to add to this discussion. So to do that, we are inspired by SWAP Monte Carlo that consists in you have Apollo dispersed systems, and you choose two particles at random, and you change their radius. So basically what you're doing is adding a degree of freedom to your systems. And it was shown that adding this degree of freedom accelerates the glassy dynamics. So the idea is have a system where you can keep the thermodynamics the same, but you can change the dynamics of the system. So in our case, what we did, we have the systems, and we say a fraction of our particles can swap, can do this movement, and we can change this fraction. And we also add restrictions to the movement of the particles. So we say a fraction of our particles can only move on a plane. And by doing so, we can control the degrees of freedom of the systems continuously. And we can use these systems to test some of these ideas. So that's our idea, and if you want to see our results, you are welcome in my poster.
Thanks a lot, Cristina. So, questions over there.
I have a question. There is the same temperature or critical point in each theory, or it changed?
I I don't know if I understand
The question.
the question is you mean the glass transition temperatures?
Yes.
I don't know if it changes. I think it changes with the liquid, and it changes how quickly you do the process. But I don't know if each. What it does is, for example, if the theory assumes that is purely thermodynamics, if you have a system and you keep the same temperature, the glass transitions should be independent of the dynamics. It can only describe. But what we show is if you keep the thermodynamics, in our case, we chose the packing fraction instead of the temperature. If we only change the connective rules, we see difference in the glass transition. So there is a difference between the theories, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we move to the next speaker now, who is Luis Carlos. He's going to be talking about opinion, inertia, and coarsening in the persistent voter model.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Good afternoon. So today I'm going to talk about my work in collaboration with Professor Jefferson Arenzon from Federal do Rio Grande do Sul and Professor Wellington Dantas from Federal Fluminense. And here we are interested in understanding how opinion inertia affect the properties of consensus formation in social systems. So to approach this question, we proposed a new model, which is the persistent voter model, which introduces novel mechanisms for opinion dynamics. So basically, what it introduces is a new variable. So each agent in the systems, besides its own opinion, has a variable called confidence, which tells you how easy it is for him to exchange opinions in the dynamics. And this confidence increases through peer reinforcement. So whenever I interact with someone with aligned opinion with mine, I have this confidence increased. And once it exceeds a threshold, in this case 1, let's say it, my opinion is temporarily frozen. So it is temporarily frozen because these interactions still occur in the system, and once I reach someone with opposing opinion from mine, my confidence is resetted, and once again I became a normal voter, and I can exchange opinion once again. So one of the key features of this model that I want to highlight is the presence of this active region, as you can see on the panel in the right. So regardless of the initial configuration, you can see that there's a stripe developing in the interface between domains, which is some specific characteristics of this model, and it basically controls the degree of disorder and order present in the system. By the way, the size of this stripe is controlled by this parameter delta eta, which is how the increment of confidence is given when I interact with aligned neighbors. Okay. So the key result I want to discuss here is that there is a minimum time to reach consensus for a given value of delta eta, of this parameter. Okay, so I'm not going into more details. If you are interested in some of these results, you can come to my poster. There are two papers on this model, which you can check it out. But basically, there is a minimum, and the minimum is exactly related with the presence of this active region and the interpolation between its existence and the formation of these zealots, which basically introduce order of the system. So there is an interpolation between order and noise in the system. And there's a specific value of delta eta where the width of this active region is just wide enough to break through this center of these domains, as you can see. Like this can disrupt these domains while also disrupting stripe-like the ones in the top, which are responsible to slowing the dynamics. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Luis. So, questions? I have one quick question. How does this relate to models of alignment between particles, such as flocking dynamics, or can you have anything similar?
I mean, this is just the proposal of the model is just basically proposing the sense of understanding consensus formation on opinion dynamics. So, but yeah, we have ideas on using this system, this model for other systems, such as biological ones, but nothing yet done so far. So.
Great, thank you. So we move to the next speaker, who is Dulce Tanori. Yeah. She's going to be talking about the Mozart effect, the functional network of brain activity during cognitive processes and acoustic stimuli. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, my name is Dulce Maria Guerrero Tanori. I am currently in my PhD in Mexico. My advisors are Marcus Müller and Paulo Holguin. So, currently I'm using the Mozart effect to analyze the brain dynamics. So, yeah, it's working. Yeah, the background. The Mozart effect, what is? It was identified in the 90s by Roger. She conducted an experiment. She had 3 groups in it, and the group who listened to Mozart, the group who listened to relaxation techniques, and the control group. They sat in silence, and that was it. Then she asked them to do a task, cognitive task, about visually and spatial abilities. So the group who listened to Mozart scored to 8 and 9 IQ points, higher than the other groups. And this sparked interest in how music impacts cognitive function and brain dynamics. So the objective is to study the brain using functional networks on the music-induced cognitive modulation. Using Mozart, I am using Brahms, and I am using the control group. And I am conducting an experiment which involves EEG recordings to quantify the intellectual connectivity during this cognitive task. There are 3 cognitive tasks. So my key questions are, how does the music alter brain dynamics under this cognitive task? And what are the network patterns of brain activity across these different conditions? So okay, I'm in time. I'm having participants, 36 female, 36 males. I'm having the 3 groups. And I'm having also 3 tasks. They are symbol search, paper folding and cutting, and a Stroop effect. And which I obtained, they are EEG data and analyze it mostly with tools on the complex system lab in my university. And I am focusing, oh my God, that was weird. I am focused on functional connectivity and network dynamics. And this is my loving memory of my grandma who passed a couple of days ago. Yeah, that's it.
Very much. Thanks a lot, Dulce. So we have time for questions. Can we use other types of music or only classical music?
There's a lot of music. Mozart effect is not only Mozart, so yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So now we have Pedro Mendes talking about restricted Boltzmann machine approaches, lattice systems.
Hello, can you hear me? So my name is Pedro Mendes. I recently finished my master degree in Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul. And I'm going to talk about the work I did in my master. So the work's called Applications of Restricted Boltzmann Machines in Lattice Models. We use the RBM, the Boltzmann machine, which is a bipartial model that is described by this energy, and the probability is the Boltzmann distribution. So the Boltzmann machine is used and strained and used using the constructive divergence method. But what we use it here, we see the RBM as a feed-forward neural network, where the output is the free energy of the RBM, and then we construct a loss function. And in this way, we can use all the literature about machine learning, then I think Mathieu will going to talk. And then minimizing the difference of free energy, the RBM reproduce the configurations of the lattice models. So a few of my results. The RBM can reproduce the lattice configurations. Here we have the density probability of the IZ model in temperature 2.2. And then we have, we can see that RBM with different number of hidden nodes can reproduce the IZ model. And then one of the coolest results for me is that because we are using a generative model, the autocorrelation function of the energy decays very, very fast when compared to Monte Carlo. And then we can see that our results, they are not related to a specific temperature or lattice size. And this image is when we get the matrix of connections W, we multiply by the transpose, and then we see how the visible nodes see each other. So here I can talk more in my poster if you are interested. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Pedro. Questions? Okay, if not, let's move to Vinicius Miller. He's going to be talking about phase diagram of epidemic spread in sparse directed networks. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Vinicius. I'm an undergraduate student at URGS, advised by Professor Fernando Metz. And our work is about epidemic spreading in sparse directed networks, specifically the SIS model, which is a model in which every individual is either susceptible or infected by the epidemic. When it is infected, it eventually recovers and becomes susceptible again. And we want to look at the stationary states and the phase transitions of the model. So this is just a set of couple differential equations, which tells us the probability that each individual is infected at a given time. So this is the basic phase transition of the model. It's the order parameter, which is the main probability of infection. But we want to look at the order parameter as a function of the network structure, as a function of the connections, because we use two probability distributions to describe it. First, we lay out the connections between individuals from a given degree distribution. And on top of these connections, we add some weights which relate to using masks or talking outdoors, talking indoors, which give us the intensity of the transmission contact. So what we see is that we have a different behavior depending on the distribution which use on the weights of the connection. So these curves here use a given probability distribution, actually the gamma distribution, and they all have a critical point around here. But when you use the Pareto distribution, it doesn't happen. And it should only depend on the mean and standard deviation of this distribution, but the choice of it also affects the system. So this is one effect. And the other one is about the localization of the epidemic activity, which is we use first the inverse participation ratio, which is a measure of how much the epidemic is localized on a few number of individuals, or if it is spread out across the whole population. So when it diverges, it means that there are very few individuals who are very much infected, and when it is finite, it means that everyone is a little bit infected. So we construct the phase diagram. Blue is the absorbing state, which is there is no epidemic, and red one is the epidemic persists across time in the population, but we have a different behavior with respect to localization. So there is a region in the phase diagram where the epidemic is kind of localized, but it is not truly localized because it never diverges. So we have a semi-localized effect on a region of the phase diagram, and also this phase transition that shows here, that is dependent on the choice of the distributions that we use, and not only its statistical properties. So that's basically it. We can talk more at the posters, and thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Vinicius. Questions? So our next speaker is Juan Soriano, talking about age-based model for traffic flow optimization. There you go. This is just the to pass here and to point here. Stay around here for the camera. Okay. Você quer trocar ou eu continuo?
Hello, everybody. My name is Juan Diego. I'm from Ecuador. I recently graduated and got my physics degree. I'm from ICTP University. My work is agent-based model for optimization of vehicular traffic flow. Why I choose this topic is because in recent years, for example, more specifically in 2022, it was reported that people lost around 170 hours spent in traffic jams. This means that, in average, people spend 7 days of their life per year stuck in their cars. This in small cities like Quito. So this means that in bigger cities like Sao Paulo, Buenos Aires, they lost more days. In Sao Paulo was around 9 days of their lives spending in traffic jams. Our research problem, what we want to solve, what we want to do is to employ agents-based model and complex network techniques to study the impact of traffic light cycles configurations in the traffic jam. What we want to, our objective is first to create a simple model that replicates the behavior of people when choosing a path towards the destination in the cities. Using this model, we want to prove that there exist traffic light configurations that optimize the average travel time of people, decreasing the amount of time they spend in traffic. Again, this is a really simple model, but it's really effective. What we did basically is to reduce the decision problem to just 2 factors. So we did this with a simple ideal case. Imagine you are in node I and want to go to node F. From high school, we know that the closest path is a straight line, but we know that in cities that doesn't occur. So the simple ideal case is when you have to choose between 2 nodes, E and H. So how you make this decision? Well, normally, and what we found out is that people consider 2 things. How much the possible path is deviating from the optimal path, that is this straight line, and how far or close is the other path. Using this simple ideal case, we derivated a simple formula that just receives these 2 parameters. And to prove that it works, we work with the real street map of the city of Quito. As you can see here. Here, how you see, these nodes are the intersections of the streets, and the edges are the streets. This is because in the intersections is where the traffic lights are. So basically, we created a complex network out of a city. If you want to see the results, please come to see the poster. I will really love to hear your insights or your ideas on how to improve the model. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Juan. So questions? So let's move to our next speaker. It's going to be João Flauzino talking about quantification of disorder in numerical data. Thank you, João.
Well, greetings, everyone. I'm João Flauzino. I'm a master's student in physics at Federal University of Paraná, and my work is about the quantification of disorder in numerical data. Well, first of all, the problem is that phenomena yields a short-length data set with order and disorder phenomena behavior. I think that's why we are in a school of disordered systems. And they often present noise due to experimental sources or whatever. And they often are with limited size. And actually, they present various behaviors such as deterministic chaos or even noise with correlation, like correlated noise. And also in the nature, there are a lot of a mixture between chaos and noise. So that's why this problem is very challenging. And my work ranges from a background from group theory, recurrence analysis, and information theory, and also statistical physics. And I can show you, for example, the first equation we start is a law of probability invariance under permutations. That's why we need to use the symmetric group notion. And with recurrence analysis, we have recurrency matrices, which can be used to make a finite set of codes of data. And also using these computable matrices, we can have an information entropy. And we show that this information entropy follows a principle of maximization of the entropy. And so this work is to propose a method which is a parameter-free and direct measure of disorder in data with any dimension. And okay, one of these results is that we have some applications like distinguishing data of different natures, such as chaos versus randomness, which is a classical classification problem in data analysis. And also, we can handling data corrupted by correlated noise, since we can, here I'm corrupting deterministic system with noise with different correlations, and we can identify the characteristic of the corrupting noise. And also, a real-world example is identifying transitions in Earth dynamics using paleoclimate data. Here, I'm using records of the carbon isotope. And with this data, which we using traditional methods, we can have these kind of results, like identifying transitions. These transitions are defined by the geologists and archaeologists using fossils, and we are getting these transitions only using a different kind of record. You know, that's why it's very interesting. And that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you, João. Question. Okay.
Thank you. I was wondering if you could use this to differentiate between fully ergodic systems and mixed behavior systems, like a system that only has a sea of chaos and a system which has integrability and invariant curves, only using this measure.
Okay, I didn't test it, but I only tested with chaos and kind of noise. But actually, we can identify the change of parameters, you know, with parameters that induce disorder in some deterministic models, for example. So probably it's possible. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Armand Delors. Is he around? Yeah, thank you. He's going to be talking about identity and characterize complex network systems using recurrence plots. Can you use this one? Thank you. So, and you can use this.
Thank you. Greeting, everyone. My name is Armand Delors. I'm a student from Cameroon at the University of Chang, and I have to present my work about identify and characterize complex system using recurrence analysis. As complex system, I want to talk about swarm-relator system, which is a combination of a swarm of an oscillator, which was introduced by O'Keefe in 2017. In this system, we have this for a swarm-relator is a group of elements that interact together with their own opinion, and the model which were proposed have this in figure 1b, these 5 steps. The first is this is the different state, and the kind of system of swarm-relator that I've present or that I've studied is swarm-relator system, which we introduce a delay between the internal dynamic between element of my system, because swarm-relator have 2 kind of dynamic, spatial and internal dynamic, characterized by the position and the FRs. The aims of my work is to characterize this system using the recurrence plot, which is based on the matrix of recurrence that we have in the other side. There I present the different elements or tools in the recurrence analysis that are used, which are RP, joint recurrence plot, and the others, which is other kind of recurrence plot. And after, I use the plot of the entropy to identify the transition between my state through the variation of parameter. Please, if you have any question or if you can aid something in my work, please go to the poster. I will be happy to answer more of your question. If you have any question that I can answer together, let's ask it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ahmad. Do we have any questions right now? So if not, let's move to the next speaker, who is Daniel Rosenblatt, talking about low density dependence of the isotropic to polynematic order phase transition in aligning active Brownian particles.
There you go. Hi everyone. Okay, so I will give a brief summary of the work I've been doing the last 2 years for my master's thesis. And it's a mouthful, but low density dependence on the isotropic to polar nematic order, so transition. So what I work in is, this project starts, is based on trying to characterize or model the behavior of RPE1 cells, that are cells that are in the retina of the eye, that align with their neighbors as to make a cohesive structure. And it's a process that appears often in morphogenesis and tissue development. So at the start of the project, we were trying to characterize dense systems, but we found that in order to better understand the transition, we go from dense systems to a low density regime. So instead of like a tissue, now we're working with a gas as to understand this transition. And okay, so this is laser here. So yeah, often the models that have been studied in this type of systems are polar models that are like, for example, the Vichek model that some of you mentioned, that are systems in which these agents want to align with each other as by pointing in the same direction. As for example, it can be thought of a ferromagnetic interaction. But also, you can add or consider an apolar interaction, as in nematics, for example, in which these agents can align by pointing in the same direction or pointing in the same or opposite direction. So we tested both systems in silico, and here we start the system in an isotropic phase. Ignore this, it's a typo, but and the system, as you let it evolve and interact with your neighbors, it aligns. Here, it aligns up apolarly, and we see like these clusters of particles pointing in opposite directions, and here we see like the classical flocking transition. So we characterize these systems or the transition by measuring the susceptibility as in an Eisen system, and we see very defined peaks. And these peaks are for different packing fractions. We can think of this packing fraction as like the density of the system. And we have a clear dependence, as more density implies that the transition, Pecklet, is the velocity of the particles that are self-propelled, collapse into, okay, basically they collapse into a single curve by a simple scaling, and this is like the main focus of this work. So if you have questions, we can talk. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Daniel. Any questions? Do you get phase coexistence near these borders?
Yeah, of course. Especially in nematic systems, you have like the system that tries to go to. You have like fluctuations around the total nematic order. There are particles, half of the particles in one direction, half of the particles in other. You have like fluctuations with some polarity appearing in the transition, right? Yeah, okay. That's what.
Thank you. So let's move to the next speaker, who is Fidel Murphy, talking about stability and growth dynamics in a mechanical model of cellular colonies. There you go. Can you stay around here? Yes. And use these.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Fidel Alvarez Murphy, and I'm the PhD student at PUC at Chile. And basically, I'm studying proliferation phenomena in active matter. So the thing is, all the cells, all the living things have these features of proliferation, right? Right? You have a single cell that starts to grow and then divides, and then you start like a lot of proliferation dynamics, a lot of correlation between the cells. So basically, all these phenomena of it's implicit, it's in cells, it's in biofilms, tissues, embryogenesis, all the life basically is based on this principle. So we want to study this because this proliferation depends on many phenomena, many other biochemical things like acidity, nutrients, availability, sorry, leader cells, mutations, temperature, and also important of this work, it's mechanical pressures, because this is something that we can study purely from physically, right? As you can see on the right, there is plenty of cell colonies that grow with a lot of different pattern formations, right? And this is under different specific conditions. So we want to study this, and the question that we have is how much of these transitional dynamics in the pattern formations can be described purely mechanically. So for this, we developed a simple discrete model of cells. It's very simple. You have a single cell, growth. When it reaches a critical radius, it divides by 2, and then go on. And with this, we jump to a continuum theory just to test the prediction of the models. I meant to the discrete model dynamics. And we can find some, by simulating this algorithm, we find some pattern formation, very interesting, dependingly just by the mechanical parameters. In particular, we find some correlation lengths between cells, and how this correlation length scale, mechanical active correlation length scale on the system, also affects the stability of a growing colony. So that's pretty interesting, and if you are interested in discuss this phenomena, I present in the posters, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fidel. So what's the mechanism that drives this phase separation?
Sorry?
So what's the mechanism behind these separation between the different layers that you see there?
In the upper right figure. It's basically because the colony is expanding, but as well you have a reproduction by cells. So at the colony is expanding, you have the front expansion of cells have less pressure that induce, this less pressure does not induce this mechanical feedback that suppress the proliferation. Yeah, so at the front, you have more proliferations. That's why you have this ring pattern shape.
Yeah, that's nice. Thank you. So our next speaker is Daniela Suarez, talking about from individual-based models to mean field equations, nonlinear cross-diffusion in a 3-species predator-prey system. That's all right.
Thank you.
How are you?
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Daniela Lloren Suarez, and I'm pursuing my PhD in the Statistical and Interdisciplinary Group of Physics in the Centro Atómico Bariloche, Argentina. Well, in my thesis, I study ecological modeling, and I try to understand how different species scale spaces affect the dynamical population and what are the conditions that different species need to persist. So in this line, in this work with Fabiana Laguna and Nara Ghisoni, we propose a master equation for a system, a metapopulation model for 3 species with different biological processes I show here. And this work was inspired in a previous work I show here, where they proposed the mean field equations for the same system in an ad hoc way. So we propose from first principles, taking account in the probability transitions, construct the master equation, and then derive the mean field approximations. In this way, so, sorry, I have to, we propose here, there are 3 species where we have extinction, predation, hierarchical competition, and colonization, like the biological processes, and they are over a grid with for each species which interact. So we arrive to the mean field approximations, where we have 2 of these, with one have diffusive terms and the other does not, because this doesn't have account of diffusive terms, but it does because here we are considering the effect of neighboring patches due to colonization. Well, this was the main work, making the calculus, the calculations, and all of that. And we also performed some simulations using Monte Carlo and numerical integration, and compare these two models, and we found that in some regions the 2 models agree, but in our regions they don't, and that's because that's because the importance it's about the importance of the space, correlation spaces. And we have more results that if you are curious, you can go and visit me in my poster. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. Right on time. Perfect timing. Questions? Okay, so let's move to the next one. Leonardo Ferreira, talking about random matrix ensemble for the covariance of Ornstein-Uhlenbeck processes with heterogeneous temperatures.
Okay, so I believe everyone can hear me. So can I start? Okay, so good afternoon to you all. My name is Leonardo Ferreira, and I'll present now what's been the work of the first year of my PhD under the supervision of Professor Fernando Metz, and in collaboration with Paulo Baruca from University College London. So I'll leave the details about random matrices and the heterogeneous temperatures for the poster section, and I'll focus in the matter of stability of stochastic dynamical equations, especially this kind of equation that are called Ornstein-Uhlenbeck processes. That is the simplest kind of linear stochastic differential equation that can be investigated. So the idea is that the microstate vector X, it evolves under the action of the connectivity matrix A that determines how each one of the components of the microstate vector interact, plus a Wiener process, a stochastic Gaussian noise. So even though these are linear stochastic differential equations, they can be used to model time series, and the idea is that we propose a trivial fixed point, we linearize the originally non-linear equation around this trivial fixed point, and we obtain something like that. And before we use these models to investigate real phenomena, we must address the question of stability, because it's the stability of this linearization procedure that will tell us if it is in fact valid for modeling real phenomena or not. So the paradigm of this area, it is related to, or better, it shows us that whenever the eigenvalues of the connectivity matrix are non-negative, this equation is stable, and so it converges to the trivial fixed point. Therefore, this linearization procedure is a valid approach to model this time series, okay? But there is an empirical difficulty of dealing with the connectivity matrix, is because it is very hard to measure experimentally. If I'm investigating, let's say, the prices evolving in the stock market, it's very hard to address how each one of the time series actually interacts. So this poses a very interesting and hard problem to be solved. So our idea for this problem is to avoid this difficulty at all. And so we will be looking to the stationary correlation matrix that is very simpler to measure. All I have to do is to record the evolution of the time series. Then I can compute the stationary correlation. And what we show in this work is that, in fact, we can use the eigenvalues of the stationary correlation matrix just as we use the eigenvalues of the connectivity matrix to measure stability. So this is a stability phase diagram, and it shows us, I will not explain what exactly this parameter means, but the main idea is that on top and below the lines, the eigenvalues of the correlation matrix are positive, and the system is stable. Well, it's hard to use the pointer when you are shaking so much, but the black and the blue dots, they show us that whenever the correlation matrix has positive eigenvalues, the solutions converge to the trivial fixed point. But below these lines, which means that the correlation matrix has negative eigenvalues, then the mean value of the time series that are those circles, they diverge back to its original nonlinear behavior. So that's it. We can discuss more on the posters. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonardo. Any questions? Okay, so let's move to the next one, who is going to be Vinícius Mucillo, talking about random walks and levy flights in the prisoner's dilemma.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Vinícius. I just graduated in physics, so this was my undergrad research with my advisor, Professor Jefferson Nguefoue, which will be here next week, so if you want to talk to him, he will be here. We studied the prisoner's dilemma with mobility system very like the one Gustavo Mangold told us about, but we focus on another type of mobility. So the prisoner's dilemma is a very simple game in which every agent has one of two strategies. They either cooperate or defect. And for the well-mixed case, the solution of the game is the mutual defection. So the defectors, they dominate the system. But if we introduce some kind of spatial structure in the system, so if we put them on a grid, now cooperators can form clusters and they can protect themselves from the defectors, and so now cooperation thrives. And with that, then we introduce mobility to the system, and what we see is that for a Brownian motion-like mobility, the cooperators, they benefit from the movement compared with the static case, okay? So it's better for them to be moving a little bit with a Brownian motion than to be static. And this is kind of counterintuitive because mobility could destroy these clusters. That is the key factor for them to survive. And so we studied a little bit more of the Brownian motion. And then we introduced the levy flights in our system, which is this kind of movement showed here. This is real data from monkeys and humans. And so now we have this like higher level of mobility because the agents that can jump over other agents. And so we are mixing a little bit more of our system. And so what we saw is that even for this type of mobility, cooperation is still thrives, and for a range of parameters, it's still better for the cooperators to be moving like this than to be static. And so we are testing basically we're testing how robust is the cooperation in this system. So now, I didn't talk about the graphs, but now we are wrapping up these results to the public, and yeah. I think that's it.
Thank you very much, Vinícius. Okay, so let's move to the next one, who is Carlos Tardio, talking about modeling plasmid-mediated antibiotic resistance evolution of bacterial communities in stochastic environments. So there you go. Here's the mic.
Well, hello to everyone. My name is Carles. I'm from Barcelona, but I'm doing my postdoc at UNAM University in Mexico. And there I do research in a center that it's called Center for Genomic Sciences. And I work in a systems biology department. And we both do work experimentally and also like some modeling and simulations. And the work that I will be presenting in the poster, it's about antimicrobial resistance. I don't know if you heard about, but this is like a huge health problem worldwide because bacteria is life and life is capable of Darwinian evolution as we learned today in the first course. So yeah, we're trying to develop some models in order to understand what's going on with the bacteria that carry plasmids that are like circular genes that are inside the cells, but are not inside the chromosomes. So these are like circular pieces of genetic information that code for the antimicrobial resistance. For instance, they can degrade the antibiotics. So, well, the model that we have developed, it's like just a population dynamics model that is able like to track the amount of bacteria that doesn't have the plasmid, the bacteria that have the plasmid under different circumstances. Here we have like the resource, that's what bacteria are eating, and here we have like the antibiotic, that's what kills the bacteria, and these are like the biological process that are involved. And one main property of these pieces of genetic information, these plasmids, are that are able like to transfer like between cells. That's super a nice biological trick. So they are able like to create this pili, like these tunnels between cells, and they can move this piece of genetic information that carries the antimicrobial resistance between them, and that makes it so difficult like to control, because they can spread like viruses all over the populations, but they can also be lost upon binary fission. That's how bacteria divide, no? I'm one bacteria and then I split in two. So maybe if there's one plasmid, one bacteria gets the plasmid while the other one loses it. So that's another process. Here we have like the bacterial killing and the bacterial growth. And summing it all up, we have like this dynamical system that now we can interrogate. And this was done in a previous work that was published in Proceedings, where we get like some biological information from some hospitals in Madrid, in Spain. But now we are augmenting this model with stochastic time series. So we used like these fractional Gaussian noises in order to test which time series is the one that is able like to diminish the plasmid population. Well, there are some nice results that I can show you later. And the last thing that I wanted to say, well, this was supposed to be a video, but it's a PDF, so stupid. But yeah, I can show you the video. In our lab, we've managed like to create a biohacking lab where we got like a 3D printer, laser cutter, a mini electronics workshop. So we also like to build things like measuring devices. And this is like a pipetting robot. So now we are able like to test this actual stochastic time series experimentally. So yeah, I think that's it. If you want to know more, let's grab a coffee and meet downstairs. Thank you.
Thanks, Carlos. Any questions? I think that space is quite important as well, right? I mean, I see that your ODEs, they do not include space, but I would imagine that next step would be to consider space and movement.
Yeah, that would be really nice. How the bacteria live inside our body, and space matters, yeah, always. But it's so difficult, like, to model with differential equations. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So our next speaker is going to be Jorge Agudelo from the house.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the work I did for my master's degree here in the IFT with Professor Danilo Liarte, which is one of the organizers of this school. So what we know is that if we want to describe crystalline solids, we can use this using periodic lattices. But there are also amorphous solids, which are systems which structure is not periodic, so we have this order system here. And if we want to study the properties of the rigidity of these systems, we can use effective medium theory. Basically, the coherent potential approximation allows us to describe a lattice that is disordered, mapping this one into a lattice that is homogeneous and have a defect, and we can solve this problem. So this is something we can deal with when this is very difficult. But in order to be sure that this homogeneous lattice actually describes my disordered system, we need to impose the self-consistency constraint. That is basically saying that the mean value of the green function of this lattice over all of the possible defects recover the green function of the homogeneous lattice. This is equivalent to say that the T matrix of the mean value of the T matrix of the system is equal to 0. But what happens? We also have correlated disorder systems with correlation, like colloidal gels that have attractive interactions, so they build. They're all disordered, but also correlated, and we cannot describe the properties of these systems using this system, using these effective medium theories with just one defect. So our work is basically to describe a generalized effective medium theory for this correlated disorder, and our main contribution is the analytical result that is basically generalizing the description of the lattice in order to account for more links in general. And when we do that, we have the description of the T matrix that is more general and it's able to describe more systems. But when we try to impose the self-consistency constraint, we can see that only one part of the T matrix depends on the defect. So we can define a new matrix, that is this eighth matrix. This is an analytical tool that allows us to redescribe the self-consistency constraint for this more general system. I can talk about the details in the poster. And one thing we did was to apply this in a numerical correlated model to study rigidity transitions in correlated systems. So what we can see is that when we introduce correlations, like this alpha, when alpha is 0, we don't have correlations, we can see that the rigidity transition, it's the known one. We have rigidity transitions for probabilities as expected. But when we introduce correlations in our system, we have shifts in the parameters in the critical parameters when we have these rigidity transitions. But also when we describe this in terms of other parameters like coordination number, we have different behavior. So since we have an analytical tool here, we can analyze this behavior for different parameters. So it is basically our main result. We can talk about the details of these results here or the numerical tool I developed in the poster session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roger. So questions? Over there.
So the transition is always the isostatic point, independently of correlations, or no?
Okay, so when we talk about the isostatic point, we need to focus on the coordination number. So we don't have shift in correlations for this isostatic point. But this is just a shift in the probability parameter. It is very important to look in that difference, and I can discuss the details in the poster.
Okay, so we have our next speaker now. It's Manuel Teixeira from Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul, talking about segregation in binary mixture with differential contraction among active rings.
So thank you very much. My name is Emanuel. I'm from Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul. Today I'm talking about a little part of my PhD work where we study cell segregation using active membranes. And in simple words, segregation is a process where cells of the same type stick together to form a tissue. And a first explanation for this process was given by a biologist named Malcolm Steinberg, who says basically the cell segregation process is due to difference between adhesion between cells which is cells of the same type, have stronger adhesion between each other than with different ones. And in this sense, the Steinberg hypothesis is very similar to phase separation of two immiscible fluids. But another guy, many years after, challenged this hypothesis, affirmed that an active process inside the cell membranes is very important, such as differential contraction, which can also driven segregation and pattern formation. So in this work, we propose to test the biological hypothesis proposed by Harris, where we use an active membranes. These membranes are formed basically using active particle connected by elastic springs, which allows to control both their size and the stiffness of the membrane. And to take into account, for example, the contraction proposed by Harris in his hypothesis, you introducing this model differential local contraction between different rings. So two different rings approach each other and can contract with certain intensity. We perform molecular dynamics using this model, and we found spontaneous segregation purely driven by different contraction between active membranes. Therefore, as far as I know, was the first time we could demonstrate explicitly the Harris hypothesis for cell segregation in tissue formation. So our work can open some possibilities for experimental investigations to understand underlying physical mechanisms related to cell segregation and tissue formation. If you have any doubt, we can talk in the poster section, and we can check too more information in this paper we published recently in Physical Review Letters. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Question? Oh, no, it's you now? Okay, please, sorry. I thought it was a question. Okay, I have done all the questions. No, I have done all the questions to you already about this. Anyone? Okay, so let's go with Gilbert Rodriguez now. Yes. Can you use this one?
What's next?
Yeah. Thank you.
Here. My name is Gilbert Rodriguez. I'm from Venezuela, but I am working right now in Bahía Blanca, Argentina. I am postdoc in IFISUR. My work is the title facilitation dynamic avalanche at the finite temperature in amorphous materials. Here we work, or in this work, we work in the avalanche, thermal avalanche through the elastoplastic model, bidimensional. For this, we define the stress of the grid for this. For the thermal avalanche, we establish the protocol in 4 ways. First, shake the first element or the first SAIFR activation event plastic for the trigger. The more event plastic is a avalanche thermic. With this protocol, we can establish the distribution, the number of site involved in avalanche, distribution of the total number activation during avalanche, and distribution avalanche duration. This is very interesting for different temperature because, for example, when we calculate the PS for different temperature, and the fixed size for high temperature. When increased temperature, the cutoff, this curve to shift to the right, and the exponent, the power law, it changes too. This permits the establishment of the critical temperature for the thermal avalanche. For this we calculate for different size. And we establish the size distribution avalanche for the critical temperature, or like critical temperature for different size. If you want question, can you explain in the section poster? Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert. So do we have any questions? If not, I would like to thank all the speakers once again. Thank you. And you can talk more in the poster session. I would like to thank Leticia as well for being the actually organized person here to keep the time. Do you want to say anything about the... Do you want to announce that?
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm sorry I wasn't here in the beginning because we had to take Jasna to the hospital. She's okay. Okay. She won't have to plaster her foot and anything like that. She's fine. Actually, we finished all the talks in the first session, so we're going to the coffee break and we can have a discussion at length with the posters and during the coffee break. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Do you understand that there will be no second session? Yes. Okay. And also, I have to thank Pablo and Leticia for hosting the session. Instead of the organizers, we were not sufficiently organized. Huh?
Nice to meet you. What happened to you?
No, she hurt her feet.
Today?
Yesterday night. She gave her lecture on barefoot. Yes, she went to the hospital. Now she's having to hold like this. She's fine.